Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf, BECHOROS Daf Chaf Beis. We are at the Mishnah on Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Behemo Gasa. You have a heavy animal, cattle, a cow, who miscarried, Sheshafa, who discharged Chareras Dam. So Chareras Dam is a clump of blood-looking substance, which in reality was a fetus that failed, that dissolved, and got compressed into this blood clot-looking entity. Halachically, this is regarded like a birthing experience, in which case it will now exempt her, it will make her potter, so that the next birth will not be considered her first, and the offspring will not have Bechor status. Hariza to cover. So this material has to be buried. Now, seemingly it's because it has the kedusha of a Bechor, but it's not so, as the Gemara will explain, Tosfos explains. It has no kedushas Bechor because most likely it didn't qualify. Because percentage-wise, most offspring don't have kedushas Bechor. You have 50% female, and even amongst them you have something called nidme, where the offspring in its appearance is dissimilar to the mother animal, in which case it's also exempt from Bechor. So for the most part, you have to assume that really this does not have Bechor status. Technically, there's no reason to bury it. It has no kedusha, but the reason why we bury it, as we're going to see in the Gemara, is to publicize the fact that this experience ever occurred, which will explain why the next time she gives birth, it is not considered her first. Okay, so that's the point of burying it, uptur ben b'chora. And, the subsequent births are not considered her first and don't have status of Bechor. Because this experience, despite not really being a very successful birthing experience, nevertheless has a status of a Leida, and she's passed her first. Tani Rabbi Chia, Eino matama le b'magla b'masa. You should know this material, despite it containing some sort of fetus, some sort of offspring, in its lifeless form, which you would think now transmits tumah by way of touching or carrying it. It's like an avela. No, there's no tumah being generated at all. Ask the Gemara, how could we have it both ways? On the one hand, it's a birth. Apparently it has offspring status. And in fact, we bury it. But then it has no tumah. But then it's considered like she gave birth and she's potter from... How do you reconcile all these different elements? If it has no tumah at all, am I to cover? Why bury it? If there's no velad, there's no burial. We turn to the next talmud. Halachically speaking, it doesn't have kedushas bechor, because, as we said, percentage-wise, it's most likely not going to have bechor status. Female, nidme, right? And the reason why we bury it, to publicize this matter, to publicize this event, that we consider it to be a vlad, halachically it's considered an offspring, and this was considered having given birth, in which case, the next time she's exempt from bechora. Ask the Gemara, okay, fine, so either way you're agreeing that it's considered a vlad, lamemra, the vlad malyu, so it's considered a proper vlad. Halachically, this is an offspring, so then why is there no tumah? How could you... You're right. It is considered a vlad, but it's batal baroiv, because once it gets liquefied and dissolved, it gets mixed into other liquids surrounding it, embryonic liquids which nullify, which are mevatel by their sheer quantity. It's mevatel this material of tumah. Interestingly, there's bittul regarding tumah. Right? Until now we speak a lot about forbidden materials being batal b'roi, being batal b'shishim. Here comes a new concept. Material which contains tumah, which carries tumah, can be batal b'roi as well, which obliterates which nullifies the tumah status. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mishum bittul b'roi. It's on account of the nullification. In the majority liquid surrounding it, no goba, they apply to it, so they treat it like something which is batal, and therefore no tumah. So on the one hand, it is a leida with respect to bechor, meaning that the next leida is not a bechor. On the other hand, it has no kedusha as bechor, because most likely it didn't qualify as it wasn't a male, and also it's not going to have a tumah because of bittul b'rov. V'az the Rabbi Yochanan, who provided this explanation into Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's case in the Mishnah, that in fact it's batal b'rov, and that explains why there's no tumah, right? As Rav Chia explained the Mishnah, is in line with another shita, who likewise applies the rule of bittul b'rov regarding the tumah of the fetus. V'aza Rabbi Yochanan is following, is consistent with what he said elsewhere. Dam Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who applies bittul b'rov in our Mishnah regarding our case. Rabbi Shimon, and likewise Rabbi Shimon, Amr Davarech, they're both on the same track. They both consider the failed miscarriage as being tahor material due to bittul b'rov. So firstly, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Amar, as we just explained, Rabbi Shimon Ma'i, where is that? It's not Sholi Babai. So a woman discharges this embryonic sac in this room, and the unborn fetus is lifeless, and certainly will give off tumah, should give off tumah, like a person who died, right? So anything in the home, habai is tameh. Lo isha shel yivlad, not because the actual sac has a status of an offspring and is a generator of tumah. No, ela she'ein shel yivlad. It's because within the shilya, we assume there is no shilya without a vlad within it. So although it dissolved, it got liquefied, but nevertheless it has tumah and spreads it throughout the house. Rabbi Shimon never no, there's no tumah at all being generated because vlad nimak ashelayatza. We assume the vlad dissolved before he left the mother, in which case becomes batal b'rov with the surrounding liquids, which nullifies its tumah status. Nahasa. So we have a Mishnah in Maseches Alais on a similar topic. Ein l'nefalim psichas hakever. So the psichas hakever here refers to the opening of the womb. So if the unborn child died within the mother, it generates tumah, provided there's an opening for that tumah to leave the mother into the house, as opposed to when things are still closed up in the mother. It's to contain the tumah, and actually there's no tumah at all because it's within the mother, and it's not considered a tummy entity at this point. But once it starts emerging, once there's an opening for it to come out, it is considered like it's exposed to the outside world, and it sends the tumah out to the surrounding area. So once there's a psichas hakever, it's a term referring to the womb opening up, the tumah gets activated, emerges, and it exports to the surrounding. But there's a minimum size in terms of the head size of the unborn child, for this to be considered a leida, a birthing experience. So if it's significantly sized, the unborn, the unborn fetus, then in fact this opening up of the mother is considered an emergence and an act of leida, which spreads the tumah. What is the minimum size of the head of the nafel of this miscarried entity? We only apply psichas hakera to a nafel if its head is large enough to qualify to be considered an act of Leda, like he experienced Leda because he has Chashivas. Ad Shiagilu, it's a lashon of circle, right? Eagle, Roish, the head of the offspring, is large enough Kepika Shal Tzemer, like the ball on top of a spool on which they wrap the threads. So that's how big it has to be. My Kepika, what pika are we talking about? Amar Rafuna Kepika Shal Tzemer, the spool of the wool threads. Amalei Chia bar Rav l'Rafuna. Rabbi, explain to me. There are two threads. There's the chassis, the horizontal threads in the loom, which are thinner than the erev. The vertical ones, the chassis is the vertical ones, and the erev are the horizontals, and the chassis is thinner. In which case the equipment is smaller in size. So which spool are we talking about? Rabbi Parsh, explain please. Shall chassis, the ball on top of the chassis spool, shall erev, or the erev? Amalei Tanya, you have a brisa that it's actually a machlokes. Pika shal chassis, that is divrei Rav Meir. Rabbi Omer is shal erev. Rabbi Elazar Tzadok Omer, he provides a different formula in terms of what's considered a psichas akever, the opening of the system. It's unrelated to the size of the infant. If it opens up wide enough that you notice the tfifiyos in the opening of the womb. My tfifiyos, what exactly is that? As follows. They used to explain, like a mule which kneels to shed its wastewater. That's the way you would do it. The nearest pika, and you see within her a circle within a circle, so that's considered open enough. Likewise in our case. Amar Rafuna, Shamati, I heard, I was taught, shtei pikos, that there are two halachos regarding this pika, this ball on top of the spool, and one relates to the chassis thread, one to the erev thread, which is bigger. Two halachos pertaining, one to each. Shemati ishtel pikos. I heard halachos. I was taught halachos regarding both sizes. Achas shel chassis, one of the chassis, the smaller one, v'achshalev, one the bigger one of the erev and the farish. And I'm not really sure how to explain what applies to what. Because Rav Dimi, when he came, Amar B'yechon, called Rav B'yechon, actually it's three different sizes. Shalish pikos. Shamati, I heard about three. Achas shel chassis, one of these chassis, v'achshalev, one of the erev. Achas shel pika gdel shel sakon. The third one, the even larger size pika pertaining to the threads they use to sew up the sacks, which have bigger threads, in which case the equipment is even bigger. And I'm not sure how to explain what applies to what. Okay, so finally when Ravin came, he quoted Rabbi Yechon and explained each one for what it is. He says like this: Shal isha k'shal chassis. Speaking of the opening of the woman's womb, regarding her birthing experience, that is contingent on the chassis. So if the head of the infant is like the chassis thing, then it qualifies. Shal behema, regarding birthing of a behema, regarding her halachis. K'shal erev, that is corresponding to the spool on the erev. And the third size, pika shal sakoin, that applies to a totally different law. The Sanyas will have a bryce, a gush, a clump of earth, habam beres pras, which was imported from a beis pras, which is a field in which they plowed over a grave. So that whole field is tamei midrabanan. So some dirt from that field, which was brought over here, umeretz amim, or dirt from the lands outside Eretz Yisrael, which also contain tuma midrabanan. Shiurai. So if this clump of earth matches the size of the big pika that's used for the threads of the sakoin, then the Chacham applied a tumah to that clump of earth. It's as though you're sitting actually in the field or sitting outside Eretz Yisrael. You've imported that tumah, but smaller than that doesn't have significance enough, and it does not contain the tumah. So again, the size is kefika gedel shel sakoin, that the large pika used for the sakoin, which corresponds to another phenomenon. It's the chaysen, that's the stamp that they stamp on the big sacks of merchandise. So it's a big stamp of they used to use like clay, whatever. So that's the has a similar same type of size. V'yeshnoi, and this type of size is found elsewhere as well. B'tzad ha'elyon. So that's like sort of a feature which is a top. On the top of the cap, the barrel cap, shal mugufas, the cap of the chavis of the barrels, halachmis, the lachmis barrel. What does lachmis barrel mean? So that's the barrels that are made in Beis Lechem, halachmis. So you have three things to compare it to: the fikah gdol shal sakoin, the chaysam atzufen, and the top of the barrel. There, they all have the same size, and this halacha applies to the tumah of Beis HaPras and Eretz HaAmim. Okay, so conclusion. What's considered the initiation of the birthing experience regarding a woman? Pika shel shesi, if the infant, his head measures that size. By behema, it's kishel erev, and by the gush of Beis HaPras, Eretz HaAmim, that's the larger size. Amar Rish Lakish Mishum Rabbi Nasiya. He has a brand new halacha. Rish Lakish quoting Rabbi Nasiya, who actually was not the Tana Rabbi Nasiya who composed the Mishnayos. It was the Amoira, Rabbi Nasiya, which is mentioned many times in Shas, a later descendant. In any case, the quote is like this: Halakech tzir mi'amoretz. So in the olden days, they had the fellows that were classified as Amei Haaretz. They were not very learned, and they weren't very meticulous in matters of purity, matters of tumah v'tahara. So you buy from them. You have to be concerned that perhaps your material is tummy. So if you're careful with tahara, you have to, be aware that their material may not be tahar. So a person buys tzir, which is fish brine, fish juice. And it was known that the Amei Haaretz would stretch it. They would dilute it with some water. More later says up until 50%. So, this tzir is comprised partly of fish juice, which is immune to tumah. Rashi says it's ze'ba'alma. It's like sweat off the fish. It doesn't have true food or liquid status. So even if you touch it with tumah, it does not accept tumah. There's no issue of tumah there. So you can feel comfortable freely buying it from the Haaretz. Problem is not the tzir element per se, it's the water within it. Water is makabel tumah. So what do? Halakech tzir mi'am Haaretz. Very simple solution. Mashika b'mayim v'tar. You take this mix, you go down to your local mikveh, and you tap it to the mikveh. You connect. Mashika is lashon hashaka, like a kiss. You make contact with the mikveh water. So, and Rashi explains, by the way, there's no concept of being toivel food or drink that are tummy. Don't you think it's only by people or by utensils that you could be toivel and make them tar. So what's going on with the hashaka? Rashi says it's unrelated to tevilah. It's not like you're immersing it and nullifying it. No, it's not an act of tahara. It's an act of, he says it's like the Gemara speaks about shesilei truma. So you have, plants of truma with truma material growing on them. They became so you replant it in the ground. If you have a vegetable, truma, it became tummy, replant it. He says the replanting, it's not like a tevilah. It's bittul. It's totally nullifying it. It's reincorporating it into the ground. It's becoming part of the surrounding land, environment. So that's why it loses its tumah status. Same with the water that's now being connected to the mikveh. It's not because you're immersing it and ma'aseh tefillah is being purifying it. No, it's because it's like you're planting it back and reconnecting it to the water system. You're nullifying it because you're obliterating its identity. It's now part of the greater body of water. Hence, it loses its status and loses its tumah. So this is an effective means of purifying water. Okay, so he takes this container with fish juice / water, this mix, does hashak. And it works. Either way. You know why? Either way. The truth is, we don't really know the proportions. How much of this mix is water, how much is fish juice? So either way you're safe. Because if it's mostly water, so this has water status. This whole mix now has water status because we determine its status based on its majority element. So it's water, labeled as water. Hashaka is matar the water. On the other hand, if it's mostly comprised of fish juice, in which case hashaka is not going to be an effective method because fish juice does not connect to water. There's no hashaka there. But remember, tzir lav bar kabula tumuhu. There was never any tumah concerns regarding fish juice. It's not susceptible to tumah. So now we could just ignore the 49% of water within this mix. It's a miyut. It's a minority element. Mayik, what's your concern? Mishum hanach miyut the mayim. Because of the minor element of water in this mix. Hanach batlu beruba, because batal beroiv. The fish juice takes over. It's classified as fish juice. So even if the water in there is tamei, we don't have to worry about it. It's batal beroiv in the fish juice. But Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, here's a big chiddush, says Rabbi Yirmiyah. The tumah of that water is just temporarily offline. It's sort of suspended. It's put on pause. But it can be reawakened. If that water will now be increased, the percentage gets increased until it becomes the majority stockholder of this mix, then it's now reclassified as water and the tumah comes back. Interesting concept. On the one hand, we treat it as batal, but if you increase its percentage till it becomes a significant player, it can be reawakened. Now you have tamei water on hand. Very big chiddush. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Leishana, when can he just proceed without concern? Presuming the tamei water is just batal on the fish juice. Ella litval ben pita, if he's going to use it to dip his bread, so he's going to leave it as is and not going to add any water. Aval kadero, he's going to throw it into a soup, add it to his pot, which has other water. So although that water is fine water, it belongs to the chaver, Talmud Chacham, it's not tamei, but water meets water, and it teams up with him. And now in this general mix, you have a majority water. So you can't do that because matzah min, because the water within the fish juice finds, it meets up, it encounters matzah min es mine, material which is similar to him, and now they team up. They join forces, v'neir, and once they become the majority, he wakes him up. He gets reinvigorated. He comes back to life. And now you have a mix comprised majority of water, which has tumah. Interesting concept. Yosef Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi was sitting, coming Lashmaita, saying over this halach of Rav Yirmiyah that you can reawaken a nullified tumah. Amalei Abaye, since when? Mechituma shabatla. Is that so? That a tumah that already was nullified, Chazav Ne'er, will come back to life and wake up? Amalei says, for sure. Adla Tizbra, you don't agree with me? We have a Mishnah which broadcasts the same halacha, but Tanam, we have a Mishnah. So Truma Tmeya Shanaf Lameya, turns on the base. Shanaf Lameya Chulun Tahir. You have a pound of Truma, which is Tameh, inedible, right? Truma Tmeya you can't eat. It was dropped into 100 pounds of ordinary material. So it's batal, because 100 is batal, one is batal and 100. Nevertheless, but machlekes in terms of how to proceed. You see, we want to discourage this type of thing. We don't want people to be mevatel. That Truma Tmeya. We don't want the Kaihanim to lose their portion. So you have to pull out a pound of this material, of this mix, and destroy it. You have no gain, you have no benefit. Pull it out, destroy it, tirakiv, let it rot, right? Shani Omer, because we sort of assume that in fact he sa'asha nafli sa'asha also. That this pound that you've now extracted from the mix, you've encountered that same material that fell in. That's where we look at it. We give it that status, we're stringent, and we have to burn it. Chacham say, look, technically it's ti'ala, it's batal. So the pound of truma tmeya is batal. It's just that Rashi says, of course, you have to separate a pound so that the Kehanim get their share, or at least pay them off for the value of the truma that they lost. Okay, so we don't treat it like Rabbi Lezer, like, this exact one is the exact one that fell down. We can't identify it, but nevertheless, you have to forward the Kehanim, the value of what they lost. And in terms of the remaining mix, what do? But the fact is, you have truma tmeya contained there, so you have to be careful that the truma tmeya doesn't spread its tumah, so you eat it nikudim, dry, in its dry form. You don't allow any proper liquids to come into contact with this flour or whatever, so that it doesn't become susceptible to tumah, and there's no spreading of tumah. Or you eat it, roasted, or teil pears, or you knead the dough with fruit juice, which again does not have tumah capacity. Another option would be to split it into small portions of dough, with each one having less quantity than is required to spread the tumah. And you must ensure that each dough does not contain a kibetza amount of that truma tmeya. And the Parshim explain what it means like this. So you have 1 pound of truma tmeya dropped into 100 pounds of chulin toirin. So basically, it's 1 pot of 101. You have to ensure that each section, each pot, each dough, does not have 101 kibetza, 101 egg quantity worths. And the reason is because if it's a bit less than 101 egg worths, then you know that even if 1 pot of 101 of this new, mini dough is that truma tmeya, right, in proportion to the general mix, which is right, but it's going to be less than a kibetza. And even if the tmeya material is there in that amount, but if it's less than a kibetza, it's not going to present a tumah concern, because it can only generate and spread tumah, export tumah if it's kibetza. So you make sure it's smaller, you keep it below that threshold, and you're safe. V'tani Allah, we have a brayta which explains on this Mishnah. Oisan chulin. So this mix, according to the Chacham, we just explained what you do with it. You eat it, just make sure that there's no tumah spreading around. Fine. But according to Rabbi Lezer, who instructs us to pull out a pound and presume that that is the same exact material that fell in, Matei Alein, what happens to the rest? Should we just assume the Truma Tzmei is gone and we don't have to reckon with it? Or we still have to account for the possibility that the Truma Tzmei is stuck in there? We just treat the material that you separate as though it's the Truma Tzmei, we are strict with it, you have to destroy it. But it can very well be that there's still Truma Tzmei stuck in there and you have to treat it accordingly and prevent its spread. Matei Alein, so what do you do with the mix? Same exact like the Rabbanon, Yachal Nekudin, eat it dry, a kloyes, roasted, a peres with fruit juice, so you split it into many doughs, many batters, with less than a kibetz of potential Truma Tzmei in there, kibetz makam echad. Okay. And the question is, in general, why? Why are we even concerned? And why do we have to even treat this mix in a unique way? Dry, roasted, this, that. I mean, look, bittul is bittul. The Truma Tzmei that fell in there was batal. It's gone, it's nullified. There's no Tumah to speak of. You know what the reason is? Because it could reawaken in the future. We're concerned that it might come to a circumstance where it gets reawakened. Ma'atam Gzera, there's a concern. Shema Yavi Kav Chulin Tmei Makam Acher. This fellow, okay, so he had the pound of Truma Tmeya dropped into 100 pounds of Chulin Torah. Okay, so far batal. Fine, no problem. Now, next day, he might encounter another problem. He'll have a kav, another, pound of ordinary material, chulin, which are tamei. He doesn't like tamei. He wants to eat things tahar. So he's going to go try to free it of its tumah. How? By doing bittul. Taisa says a person really not allowed to do that. Not to go be mevatel chatchila, but he didn't realize, he didn't know. Okay. So how's he going to do it? He says, great, I have this huge, container with this 101 so huge amount of perfectly fine material. In his mind, it's perfectly fine because any problematic element was already bottled in there yesterday. She's going to take a kav plus of this mix and take today's problematic issue, today's kav chulin tmein, and connect it to, assuming in his mind he's going to be thinking that he has a majority element of tar. Because in his mind, yesterday's mix is totally taking care of its bottle. It's tar. Now I have a kav of chulin u'chatame. I want to take care of it. I want to relieve it of its tumah. I'm going to find something which can be mevatel it. How? I'm going to go back to that old mix, take out an amount which is a bit more than this kav, connect the two, mix them up, and it's bottle. Now we have all tar. Shem yavit kav chulin tmei makam acher. He might land a kav of chulin tmein from elsewhere and connect it to the kav oid minzeh. Take a kav plus an ounce of yesterday's mix, which he assumes to be tar. Mix them together. Sava, he'll figure, I'm going to be vatal today's tamei beroiv in the majority element of tahara. But the thing is, it's not so simple. V'kivon the ikahai mashu. The fact is, the kav plus an ounce of yesterday's mix really contains a small element, 1 part of 101 of tumah, right? The tumah tmei that was in there, right? Which is still sort of alive in potential. And as soon as he finds some camaraderie, finds some like-minded material, such as today's kav, which is tumah, he's going to reconnect and reawaken. There goes Yibit Avarayv. So again, Sunday, a pound of Truma Tmeya drops into 100 pounds of Chulin Tahir. Bata Barayv, great. Monday, he lands a certain amount of Chulin Tmeya. Okay? A kav. He wants to get rid of the tumah. What does he do? He goes back to yesterday's mix and takes a kav, which is equal to today's amount, plus a little bit more, so that he has a majority to overwhelm today's kav. But that little bit more represents the percentage of Truma Tmei that was in that mix. And that Truma Tmei is still there playing in the background. And now in that little bit, that extra ounce, which he thinks is going to push it up, tip it over the top, tip the scale and make it roiv tar, actually that little bit now encounters this new visitor, this kav of Talmud material of today. He connects to it and reawakens. And he crosses over to the other team, crosses lines. So now you don't have roiv of tahar anymore. It's either 50-50 or maybe even roiv tameh. Since you have that little bit of truma tmeya of yesterday, which is still playing in the background, it's going to encounter the new arrival of today's tameh material. Wake up, team up with him, and now you don't have bittul. Okay, so bottom line, from this whole Mishnah, the Brisa, what do we see? That even something which was bottle can come back to life. So responded Rav Dimi to Abaye, who was surprised about Rav Yirmiyah's halacha that it can come back to life. Look, you see, it could. Armali says, how do you compare the two stories? Im tumah reres tumah. Just because in this case, the tumah element of today will reawaken yesterday's tumah. Yeah, it makes sense. Tumah and tumah go hand in hand. I agree. But the hara reres tumah, as opposed to the case of the fish juice, the water element in the fish juice is not encountering something which is tameh. You're throwing it into a chicken soup, which has water, but that water is tar. Why would you think that water will now awaken, will bring back to life the tumah in the water inside the fish juice mix. No, I can't do that. So yeah, tumah can reawaken tumah, but tahara can't awaken tumah. And therefore I maintain that once that water in the fish juice was batal, you're free to use it, even with other waters. And the tumah will remain dormant. Okay? So in conclusion, we have a miscarriage, chareres dam, discharged by behema, is considered like her first birth, which now exempts any subsequent births from bechor. We bury it not because it has kedushas bechor, because most likely not going to be halachically a bechor, most likely it's in a cave or an idmah, but we want to publicize the event so that people understand what's going on. There's no tumah, and that's because it's batal b'roiv. We learned about the psichas hakever by the isha, by the behema. We learned about the different types of pikos, shesi, erev, and gedolah shel hakohen regarding 3 different matters. We have a chiddush regarding the tzir purchased from the ma'aretz, which is sure to contain an element of water. Not to worry, don't just do hashaka in the mikveh. Either way, you're safe. If the water element is majority, so hashaka will be effective. If the water element is the minority of the mix, then it's just batal. But according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, use it carefully, in a manner which will not reawaken that water. Because if it does, it's called matzah min esmina ibn ir. Abaye challenged the halacha, although he agreed that tumah or is tumah, such as in the case of the truma mixed into the chulin, but he'll still disagree with tahara or is tumah. Okay, all the best to you and atzlacha rabba.